when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett questioned Melania Trump's immigration path live on air. She didn't just spark outrage, she cracked open a conversation America's been avoiding for years. It started with the usual political back and forth, the kind of cable news panel that airs at 8 p.m. with glossy graphics, 2-minute talking points, and 4 people talking over each other. Jasmine was seated second from the left, right beside a conservative strategist with a smug grin who kept hammering her on immigration. The moderator had just asked about border security and how political families have influenced immigration narratives. That's when things turned. Jasmine didn't blink. She leaned forward, eyes steady, and said, "If we're going to talk about standards for who belongs in this country, maybe we should start with Melania." The table went quiet for a full 3 seconds. Nobody spoke. Even the host, usually quick to cut in, seemed caught off guard. The conservative strategist's mouth curled into a grin like he'd just been handed a gift. "Are you seriously suggesting the former First Lady should be deported?" Jasmine didn't flinch. "I'm saying if we're going to weaponize the word illegals, let's talk about everyone's path. Her modeling visa, her green card, the fast-track process. It's fair game now, right?" The cameras kept rolling. The network didn't cut away. And just like that, the segment shifted from a policy discussion to a cultural flashpoint. Less than 20 minutes after the show aired, the moment had hit Twitter. Someone screen-recorded it, added the caption, "Representative Jasmine Crockett just said Melania Trump should be deported," and it took off like wildfire. Within the hour, #Melania started trending, paired with #DeportMelania and #Jasmine Crockett. 2 camps immediately formed. Some were cheering her on. She said what nobody else will say out loud: double standards in this country are ridiculous. Others were furious. This is racism, plain and simple. She crossed the line you don't come back from. Jasmine didn't log on to Twitter that night. Her team had advised her to stay quiet, let the press cool off. But someone had already forwarded her the headlines. She stared at her phone in silence, sitting alone in her Arlington apartment. The comment had slipped out fast, maybe a little sharper than she meant it, but she didn't regret it. Melania Trump, she thought, has always been protected from the kind of scrutiny everyday immigrants face. Jasmine had seen it up close: constituents getting detained for missing a court date, mothers separated from their children over paperwork mistakes. But Melania, she was married to money and moved into the White House. By 11 p.m., a screenshot of her face mid-sentence was posted on Truth Social with the words "disgusting. This is who the Democrats are now. Signed simply Donald J. Trump." Right-wing outlets started looping the clip on repeat. Commentators labeled her anti-woman, anti-immigrant, even anti-First Amendment, all for a 15-second comment on live TV. But the conversation was no longer about immigration policy. It had become something else entirely, and that something was about to explode. Donald Trump didn't wait for sunrise. At 11:42 p.m., his Truth Social post was already circulating. "Jasmine Crockett's attack on Melania is disgusting, racist, and anti-American. This is what the radical left thinks is decent. She should apologize immediately." The post was shared over 25,000 times in the first hour. Screenshots were posted to Instagram, reshared on Facebook, clipped into 30-second reaction videos on TikTok. The right-wing media machine kicked into gear. By 1:00 a.m., Marjorie Taylor Greene had weighed in, calling for Jasmine's censure. "She's unfit to serve. This woman just said Melania Trump should be deported. This is dangerous hate speech." From the other side, there was silence. Most Democrats hadn't said anything yet. A few progressives liked tweets supporting Jasmine's comment but stopped short of posting anything themselves. But the real problem wasn't the radio, it was the shape of it. The way people twisted Jasmine's words into something they were never meant to be. She never said "deport Melania." That part had been added by the internet, repeated, framed, amplified, and now believed. Her actual linear "maybe we should start with Melania" was already being shortened, paraphrased, and repackaged into a different narrative. And that narrative had heat. Back in Washington, Jasmine's team was scrambling. Her chief of staff Leah Mercer had barely slept, watching the story spiral across timelines and news feeds. At 7:03 a.m., he called Jasmine. "We need to talk about messaging." Jasmine was already awake, sitting at her kitchen counter with a legal pad. On it, she'd scribbled 2 columns, one titled Truth, the other Noise. Under Truth, she had written, "I didn't say deport. Hypocrisy is real. I'm not apologizing." Leah was calm but firm. "We're losing control of this. The internet thinks you said something you didn't say. So let's remind them what I did say," she replied. "That only works if they're willing to hear it. Right now, they're not." "This is fire, Jazz." She stayed quiet for a beat. "I'm not walking it back, Leo. If I do, they win. And if I don't, they'll try to bury me anyway." He sighed. "Then we better figure out how to talk about it on purpose, not just in response." By 8 a.m., 3 staffers had gathered in Jasmine's apartment, laptops open, phones buzzing. They started drafting a statement, but Jasmine stopped them. "No press release. If I say anything, I say it myself. And I say it live." "But we can't control the questions," one aide replied. "That's the point. I don't need a safe space here. I need the truth to breathe." By mid-morning, Jasmine had agreed to appear on a live morning show the next day. A big one. National audience. High stakes. She knew it wouldn't be friendly. But that's exactly why she chose it, because something bigger was happening now. This wasn't just about her or Melania anymore. This was about how quickly America turns outrage into a storyline, no matter the facts. And Jasmine was about to walk right into the center of it. But behind the public firestorm, a deeper story was quietly unraveling, a one that Melania Trump hadn't spoken about in years. Melania came to the United States in 1996. She was 26, Slovenian-born, trying to make it as a model in New York. At the time, she was on what's called an EB-1 visa, nicknamed the Einstein visa, meant for people with extraordinary ability. Some say she qualified, others still argue she didn't. The truth, it's murky. Back then, the modeling industry thrived on exclusivity and connections. Melania had both. She worked with top photographers, graced runways, and started dating a real estate mogul named Donald Trump just 2 years after landing in the States. By 2001, she had a green card. By 2006, she was a citizen. That path, while technically legal, has long raised eyebrows, and not because she broke laws, but because it was, by any measure, unusually smooth. Her visa type was rare for someone without global recognition. Her green card came faster than most. And her path to citizenship was faster than what many of her now husband's critics call the normal line. But Melania didn't give many interviews about her immigration status. She's always been guarded, poised, present but quiet. And that silence, intentional or not, made her an easy symbol. To her supporters, she's the American dream, immigrant turned first lady who stayed elegant, loyal, and above the noise. To her critics, she's the double standard personified, a woman who benefited from the very system her husband condemned, then stayed quiet while he tore that same system down. Jasmine Crockett knew all this. She knew the history, the contradictions, the way immigration is judged harshly for some and handled gently for others. And she knew the moment she mentioned Melania on live TV, the reaction wouldn't be about facts, so it would be about perception. The lights were unforgiving when Jasmine sat in the studio chair, mic clipped to her lapel, hands folded in her lap. Across from her sat Elise Dorin, a veteran journalist known for sharp questions and cold follow-ups. They were live on America Morning Focus, a national show with nearly 4 million viewers. Elise started soft. "Congresswoman Crockett, thank you for joining us." No small talk, no handshake. Elise didn't waste time. "We've all seen the clip, and I want to give you the chance to clarify. Did you call for Melania Trump to be deported?" Jasmine didn't blink. "I didn't say deport. What I said was, if we're going to judge who belongs in this country, let's stop pretending some people are above scrutiny." Elise cocked her head slightly. "You do understand, though, how that sounded to a lot of Americans?" "Yes, I understand it hit people. And maybe that's good because what I said forced a lot of people to ask why Melania's immigration story is off limits, while others, especially those who look like me, get torn apart over missing documents. Elise pressed harder. Some are calling your comment anti-immigrant, even racist. And yet I'm the daughter of immigrants. My father came here on a student visa. My mother cleaned offices at night. Nobody handed us a shortcut. I'm not anti-immigrant too, I'm anti-hypocrisy. There was a pause. Elise glanced at her notes. So you're saying Melania Trump benefited from a double standard? I'm saying her path deserves the same questions we ask poor, brown, undocumented women who've been here for 20 years and still get handcuffed at traffic stops. The control room behind glass was buzzing. Producers were giving signals. Viewers were flooding the network's social media. Elise leaned in. So let's be direct. Are you standing by your comments? I'm standing by the point behind them. This country is full of people who get judged by their accent, their skin, their name. But if your name is Trump, or you marry into money, you glide through the cracks. If saying that out loud makes people uncomfortable, then maybe it's time they got uncomfortable. The segment ended 5 minutes later. Jasmine stood up, thanked the crew, and walked off without saying another word. The clip hit social media within minutes. A hashtag began trending by lunchtime, #double standard debate. Her delivery was steady, her tone never rose. She didn't backtrack, but she didn't inflame either. Still, the response was a whirlwind. Conservative commentators called it gaslighting. One headline read, Crockett defends anti-Melania smear with word salad. But others saw something else. Clips of her response began circulating on TikTok, mostly shared by young activists and immigration advocates. For the first time in 24 hours, Jasmine wasn't on defense. She was holding her ground. By noon the next day, the country wasn't just watching, it was talking. In Dallas, an Uber driver tuned into talk radio between rides. One caller said Jasmine should be impeached. The next said she should be president. The driver shook his head and turned the volume down. His mother had waited 9 years for her green card, working 3 jobs in the meantime. He'd never cared for politics, but this felt personal. That was the new dividing line, not just whether Jasmine was right, but whether she had said it the right way. Then it started with a tweeter, no fanfare, no PR filter, just a short message from a verified account few had noticed before. I worked with Melania during her early days in New York. You all might want to hear what I have to say. It's not what you think. At Zoe Ramirez. Nick Zoe Ramirez, a Puerto Rican-American fashion stylist who once worked the Manhattan modeling circuit, had collaborated with Melania on several early jobs before the Trump name, before the politics, before the First Lady dresses. Later that day, Zoe went live on Instagram. No ring light, no makeup, just a woman in her mid-50s sitting on a couch in Queens with a steady voice and a tired kind of truth. I've been quiet for years, and I'm not here to protect anyone. But I'm also not here to lie. Melania wasn't some villain. But let's be real, she got treated differently from the moment she stepped off the plane. She was tall, thin, European, spoke 5 languages. People bent the rules for her. The comments poured in, some defensive, some grateful, some furious. I helped her get her first real job here. The agency didn't want to process her paperwork the usual way because it took too long. They had someone who knew a guy at immigration. Things got fast-tracked. No big secret, that's how the industry works for the right people. She paused, looked into the camera. Melania didn't cheat the system. The system just bent itself around her. The clip exploded within hours. CNN ran a segment titled Former Colleague Speaks, Melania's Modeling Days and the Loopholes of Privilege. Even some moderate conservatives paused. They didn't defend Zoe, but they didn't dismiss her either. And it wasn't just what Zoe said, it was how she said it. Calm, personal, not angry, just honest. In DC, Jasmine watched the video in silence, earbuds in, phone resting on her desk. She didn't smile, she didn't speak, but Leo saw her exhale slow and deep. For the first time in 2 days, Zoe's words had done what Jasmine's couldn't. They broke through the noise. Later that night, A new post appeared on Jasmine's Instagram story, just text, white letters on black. The truth doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs a witness. The Hyatt Regency in downtown Dallas wasn't ready. The annual American Values Summit was already known for drama, big speakers, big donors, a lot of loud applause and quiet money. But no one expected Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump to be in the same building. Not this week. Not after that week. Their teams had been booked for separate panels, different days, different rooms. No overlap on paper. But everything changed when Trump's team pulled a last-minute switcher. He would now close the second night in the same space Jasmine had just wrapped her keynote. Jasmine was standing backstage when Leo rushed in, holding his phone. "He's here." Outside the green room, in a carpeted hallway near the escalators, two security details clashed when they crossed paths. And then it happened. Trump appeared from around the corner, surrounded by staff, walking fast. Jasmine, trying to leave through the side exit, was suddenly face to face with him. Just 10 feet apart. He stopped. So did she. For a few seconds, nobody said a word. Then Trump raised his voice just enough to carry, "Well, if it isn't the Congresswoman who wants to deport my wife." Jasmine didn't flinch. "You still twisting quotes to stay relevant?" His expression shifted, smug but tense. "I heard you're doing interviews now. You people love the spotlight, don't you?" That phrase "you people" hung in the air like a bad smell. Jasmine stepped forward, calm and clear. "You can post all you want, smear all you want, but the people saw it. They heard what I said, and deep down, you heard it too." He chuckled, but his eyes narrowed. "What I heard was hate. What I saw was someone attacking my family because they can't win a real argument." "No," she said sharply. "What you saw was someone telling the truth without asking permission." By now the hallway was packed, a security pushing back onlookers, staffers trying to pull both parties away. Someone from Trump's side whispered into his ear, urging him to move. But he lingered 1 second longer and said, "You've got no respect, no class. Just like your party." Jasmine smiled, and not kindly, says the man who paid hush money to a porn star and tried to overturn an election. The air went still. Phones were up, comments flooding in. The clip would be viral in 10 minutes flat. Trump's face stiffened. Then he walked away without another word. By midnight, the clip had hit 5 million views. Some called her reckless, others called her fearless. The confrontation wasn't just between Jasmine and Trump, it was between two versions of America clashing, unfiltered, loud, and impossible to ignore. Monday morning came with the silence only exhaustion brings. No breaking tweet, no new video clips, just millions of Americans sitting with what they'd witnessed over the past 5 days. Jasmine Crockett didn't go live. She didn't post. She didn't grant interviews. Instead, she sat on the back patio of a friend's house in Fort Worth, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee and staring out over a quiet backyard. Across the country, people weren't just arguing Anna Maria, they were reflecting. In classrooms, pastors' sermons, dinner table conversations, even in detention centers, people were asking themselves, was Jasmine wrong to say what she said, or were we just uncomfortable because she said it too clearly? That was the dilemma, not the message, but the delivery. Because Jasmine's words hadn't been soft. They hadn't been cleaned up. They hadn't come from a consultant-approved teleprompter or been tested in focus groups. They came from experience, from the frustration of watching how two people can walk two completely different paths through the same system. One held to every rule, the other floated through by proximity to power. She knew her tone challenged people. She also knew if she'd said the same words with a smile and a softer pitch, they would have been ignored or worse, dismissed. Back in Fort Worth, Jasmine looked up as Leo walked onto the patio with his laptop under one arm and a folded newspaper in the other. "You made the front page," he said, handing her the paper. The headline wasn't what she expected. "Truth or Trouble? Crockett raises questions we still don't want to answer." She read it twice, then asked, "You think I did the right thing?" Leo took a moment. "You said something real. You said it without dressing it up. That's rare. and it's dangerous. But yeah, sometimes the truth's worth the bruises. She looked down at the mug in her hands. It was empty. Then we keep going. Because I didn't start this for a headline. I said it because I've watched too many people get crushed by rules that only apply to them. And that, in the end, was the moral of the story. In a country obsessed with image, spin, and sound bites, Jasmine Crockett reminded people that truth doesn't always come wrapped in politeness. Sometimes it comes raw, direct, flawed, and necessary. The real question isn't whether she should have said it, it's why it shook people so deeply in the first place. Because maybe the discomfort wasn't about the words. Maybe it was about what those words forced people to confront. And if that kind of truth still scares us, maybe we're not as free as we claim to be.